Welcome to the Lights On Show. I'm your host, Jacob Morset, and this is a podcast where we talk about self-development. In this week's episode, I talk with Chepyl Holsworth, a previous DECA member and a Spanish teacher, and we talk about trusting your gut and the power of leadership. If you enjoy this episode and bring some value to your life, follow me on Twitter at Lights_Show, and please leave a rating on whatever listening service you are on. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hi, I'm Chepyl Holsworth, and I'm from Washington State. I've been a teacher for the last 4 years. I currently teach Spanish, and I have for the last 4 years as well, mainly levels 1 and 2, which I really enjoy. As an educator, I grew up with my mom being a paraeducator, so I've been kind of around the school system, but never initially wanted to be a teacher. Then I went to PLU. I graduated with degrees in biology, Hispanic studies, and then a minor in chemistry. After that, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? I was approached about teaching. Initially, I was like, nope, don't want to do it. But I really gave some time to think about it and went through a program, and here I am today. And I absolutely love what I do.
That's really awesome to hear that you came from almost a no situation and you're able to be inspired to become a teacher. And that's kind of what my entire life has been about, is being inspired to do something and then changing my life to fit that. And it's really cool to hear that you are happy about it. So another experience that you have had in your past is your experience with DECA. I would love to be able to hear kind of your DECA story and what you've been able to do, like what you've done in it.
So my junior year of high school, kind of similar to what students face now, we had to take a CTE credit. And by my junior year, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the options at my school were kind of limited, but a lot of my friends had went through DECA, and they recommended to do DECA. So my junior year, I signed up in it. I started off in Intro to Marketing, which really gave me the opportunity to see what DECA was and just see the side of marketing. So I was interested in it because a lot of students noted how fun it was. I saw them running the student store, which I thought was super intriguing. And then just through the program, I didn't know very much about DECA, and so it seemed the most interesting and applicable to what I was going to be doing in life. After that, I was approached about being an officer, so I was VP of Sales Management my senior year.
Oh, that's actually really cool. So you were actually part of the DECA officer group. That's actually really cool.
Yeah. So I was an officer, which I learned so much through that experience, like trying to manage everything that DECA did. My DECA school, DECA program, we put on school dances and things like that. So I was in charge of all of those things, the sales of it, the marketing of it. I worked with a really good team as well. Both years I competed in the DECA competitions at regional, state, and international at ICDC.
Yeah, and I remember in previous conversation with you, you did this all with your sister. Just curious on how that worked with you guys, because you said that you were a VP, you were part of the state officer. What did your sister do, and how did you guys kind of work together in those aspects?
So kind of unique. As a little background, I have a twin sister, and I went to a small school, so there's like one program for one DECA class, and so we always ended up in everything together after that. It was during fourth period, so you can manage the student store as well. So when we signed up, we both have very similar interests, so we actually ended up signing up together, and then due to the schedule and the classes we took a lot of AP, and there was like one period it was offered. We ended up in the same class. And so we went through the entire thing together. So when we signed up for competition, we got to choose a partner, and I immediately was like, we work really well together. So we were, the first year, I remember not really entirely understanding what competition was going to look like, but we went in and we bounced ideas, and we were able to kind of really sell what we were working through for our competition.
So being that you've had such a elaborate, is elaborate the right word? I think it is. Elaborate experience with DECA, and since I've talked about it so much on the show, I'd love to be able to hear the things specifically that maybe you've learned, because obviously our situations are completely different. I'm in a big school. I wasn't a state officer. I didn't have a twin sister to go kick butt in DECA competitions. So specifically, what are some things that you can point out that you may have learned? And if you'd like to tell the story behind it, I would love to hear that.
Of course. I can talk a while about some of my experiences with DECA. I think that's one of the incredible things about the program and what it offers students is that it offers this diverse opportunity to really make each experience your own. So for me, it all started off with the competition and the chance really to kind of meet that situation. So for those who don't know DECA, you, depending on what area you go into, my specific area was travel and tourism. We entered it and you have a test portion, which I like the studying, I like the learning aspect of that all. And then you have the really fun part, which is the situational, like the scenario where you are given a scenario.
The prompt, the role play.
The role play, there we go. That's the word I'm looking for. And you have to come up with a solution or some sort of marketing thing. So as travel and tourism, I still remember to this day what my sister and I did. We did a scenario where we had to help an airline advertise to a younger audience. And my sister and I just we were able to really sell it. From all of our different backgrounds, we used some like stats and some statistics and some numbers to really sell stuff. Things we had learned in our classes, the intro to marketing and the way that we studied and interacted with businesses throughout our program, as well, and just kind of what different businesses had mentioned in our community. So from that and that experience of really being able to have fun in a professional format and really kind of prove yourself was amazing. My senior year, I did more of a volunteer project where it was called Santa's Helpers, and we stood outside Safeway for hours asking for food. We brought in the entire classroom was filled with food, and then we would distribute it to families in need, and we serviced more than 20 families that year.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And so through that program and just the volunteer aspect of DECA as well was inspirational, and it kind of led me to continue and set up a foundation for other officers as they continued through. And I know my DECA advisor still reaches out now to host or to do mock competitions, to be someone who helps out there as well.
Absolutely. So I noticed how you said that initially you didn't really want to really become a teacher. From hearing that story and like helping others with the family food drive, I would almost say that when the time came, almost helped to, I would say, influence or inspire you to become a teacher. Am I right?
Yeah, there's definitely an influence there and a factor when you get to put yourself in a position of serving others.
Yeah.
And that type of service that is resembled through teaching as well.
Yeah. So, I still think you kind of like narrow edged around the question, like specifically.
Probably.
So like I remember some of the things I talk about, and that's actually, I mean, I'm not discrediting you. That was a great story, and really cool to be able to hear like the volunteer work and how that translated over. But for example, I talk about in some of my episodes, I learned almost the hard way on faking it till you make it, and then describe the situation within my experience. So if you could maybe pinpoint a specific thing that you learned in your DECA competitions, even if it's like, let's say you got a better connection with your sister and then that taught you the true importance of family. I would just like to be able to hear what you have to say about that type of just like specific pinpoint lessons that you were able to learn.
A couple, so I can think of two things right off the bat for things that I learned. The first thing that I credit DECA to is for taking chances. So the first time I ever flew on an airplane was to the ICDC competition in Louisville, Kentucky.
Tough.
I still remember that whole decision process and talking to the advisor, okay, do I do this? And he's like, okay, when you compete at state and things like that. And it came through too, and it just really, the role plays and everything, like take a chance, go with this, go with your gut feeling.
Yeah.
And what you feel is right and what this company needs, or go with the gut feeling for what answer something is. And because I often would second guess myself.
Yeah.
And so DECA really kind of helped me learn to commit to something too.
Full send it. I think what most kids say, which is like, full send it.
Yep,
like,
full
that's
send.
What we say a lot.
I've heard my
of
students
full
say
send. Yeah, I've definitely had that experience as well. I think it's a really key part of life, at least. I mean, obviously, if it's like a really stupid decision, or if it's a really strong one, for example, like if it's a really high risk, high reward type of situation, like opening up a business or starting an idea or starting the podcast, it's always good to advise with other people. But I think that when we automatically shut ourselves down like that, that's almost, it's not advised. It is really good to get the inspiration, to feel the gut, and at least try to take it to the next step. And then depending on the severity of it or how rigorous the step is, just doing whatever you can in order to make the step, at least to further progress.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I've learned.
And then the other thing was just professionalism. I got to interact with a lot of community members and businesses as well. And so I learned more than interview skills, how to build like portfolios and things. And so that was something that even I think that students now really need to learn as well, and that I use today still, just those interaction and communication methods.
Especially with being a teacher too. You always stay organized. You have to dress appropriately. You have to understand where your place is as a teacher and where their place is as a student. So, and that's why I came to interview, right? Because I've noticed the relationship that I'm able to have with you as being my teacher, as being a person that I see as an advisor, because we obviously have our careers classes together.
Yeah.
So I can even see that coming through to me, like, as, like your experiences, and then translating that into how good of a professional you are at your job. So that's really cool, actually, to be able to see that and to hear your side of the story and then relate it to the way you act now. I'm more curious, though, about your leadership position. What has that taught you about leadership, and how has that affected the way that you go about your personal life? Obviously, being a teacher, you're a leader of the classroom, so you probably apply those skills there. But more specifically, in your day-to-day lives, how has doing that leadership position changed your life?
Now that you put it and say it like that, it actually makes me reflect on a lot of things. The leadership role initially is something I don't like taking. I have trouble sometimes delegating responsibilities or being able to let people do stuff. So I remember that first year when there were 5 officers, and my sister was one of them, and then a close friend, and then a couple other people that I grew up with that I knew pretty well. And so I learned to trust them to be able to do their job, and be able to focus on doing my job, and then being able to work as a team like that. I played sports, so I was used to that aspect of teamwork and working towards a collective goal. But the fact of being in a leadership role and leading an entire DECA chapter towards a specific goal or through different programs and activities that we were doing was a challenge at first. And then I've noticed throughout life, I've continued to take leadership roles in a similar format. When I was at PLU, in my first job at the Department of Advancement, I took leadership roles there. Now I've got a leadership role within the school community. I'm department chair for world languages and stuff. So that was another step where I took a chance and was able to believe in myself as a leader and work with other people to reach a goal.
And then also with that too, I think that still goes into learning the importance of, or at least enjoying the volunteership and helping people. And you being a good leader and being the chairman of world languages, being the teacher, being whatever you're doing at PLU, right? Like, you're helping others. And so that's actually really cool to hear. And I think it also helps to really, if I had to pull something out of, like, a lesson to learn out of that specific story, is that helping others helps you in the sense of, like, it makes you feel enjoyment. Like, you probably love your life. You probably live a happy life. Everyone has ups and downs, right? But you seem like a very happy person who has gotten it figured out. You're a great teacher. You have a stable job. You are able to, you know who you are. And I think leadership positions help to show us who we are. When we're put in hard situations, how we react is is the person who we really are. Yes. And I think when you're able to expose yourself to those situations, then you can truly find who you are. And I have previously talked about this in other episodes, but when you find out who you are, that's when you can begin your life. So I advise you guys to take this story and to almost put that into your life and try to understand the leadership positions that you're able to go into because they are really, they're quite important and they're quite life-changing, and they're really good experiences to have. I would also like to hit on some other points of how have you taken, like for taking your gut, trusting your gut, right?
Mm-hmm.
How have you adapted that into like your day-to-day life? Like how has taking your gut reaction and trusting yourself changed your life as well? Because I did talk about the leadership one, so now I'd like to hear the taking your gut feeling.
I think it plays into having confidence in who you are as a person, kind of what you hit on there too. So trusting your gut is just believing what you stand for, your moral convictions, the things that you believe in, that what you're doing and your acts align with your beliefs. So trusting my gut, I'd have to say, like even in day-to-day life, I have to believe as a teacher what I'm teaching you or how I'm teaching you is the best way for my students. And I know as a teacher, we have to differentiate because each student learns in a different way.
Absolutely.
And so I have to trust the process of learning in general, and that my students will be able to achieve it through what I'm doing to help them to do that.
Yeah. So, and then I'm going to kind of get into like the final quick questions so that we're kind of wrapping it up here, but would you recommend DECA to students?
Absolutely.
All right.
I think just as a program that it offers so many opportunities for students to learn more about themselves, to explore their different interests. I think that it definitely helped me tap into things that I wanted to eventually pursue. And I think that just as a program, it has a stellar reputation for giving students an opportunity to develop professional skills, to have fun in a very academic format, but situational role play way.
And I would also include in a business way, because it obviously is a business club and group and everything like that. So I would say it's great for students that do want to become highly invested in the business and corporate world, especially. I think it really helps to jumpstart.
Yeah, business is an everyday part of life. You have business relationships. Business and relationships is kind of what DECA is about to me.
Yeah.
And so you build relationships with everything. And
yeah, it really is. It is truly a unique experience to be having in high school. I have played sports before, and I would say that the experiences I've learned from doing sports and DECA, the DECA completely out-trumps what I've learned in sports, just because of the networking and the experiences you get in real-world applications, really specific real-world applications, because you have so many different categories when it comes to DECA. There's tons of them. They have 4 main categories, and within each one of those categories, they have tons of little things that you're able to really hone down your skills, like you said. And then what's one thing that the people listening can read, watch, or do, something like quick, almost like a low commitment thing that they can do before they go to bed tonight, that you would recommend, that has inspired you? And it doesn't really necessarily have to line up with what we've been talking about, but just specifically with you.
With us sitting on volunteer and just leadership stuff, I think, and something I've really worked to do recently too, is first list things I'm grateful for, even if it's a daily thing, that just to be reminded of the things that we've been given in life and the ways that we can also serve.
Yeah. And then what's the most impactful book / favorite book? So nonfiction. Nonfiction is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So what's the most impactful nonfiction book that you've read that you would like to invite the people listening right now to read?
I'm currently reading Just Mercy. It's an awesome book. I'm only a few chapters into it, and I was recommended by a good friend to look at it. But it's a lot about justice system and being fair and how to pardon even the worst types of crime. But it's a really good book.
That's actually, I might have to take a look at that, because that sounds like a really cool, since I think I really like politics. I like like my AP government class. So I think I might be able to turn it political, but also turn it into just how to treat people, how to deal with people. I'm assuming that's kind of what the book is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually really cool to talk about. Well, I really appreciate this. I would call it kind of a short, sweet podcast, but I think it gets the message through that DECA is truly an important and life-changing interaction you can do, especially when you put the most into it. For example, you went to ICDC, which is an international competition, which is the highest level you can reach. It is, and you were an officer, and you were able to do all these things, and you learned so much from it. But I think it was a really good podcast to have, and maybe it's that maybe this is the one push that we can have for students or for college students, still students, but for people in order to do that, or maybe parents listening can urge their kids to do it. But I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day and to do this for me and to respond and take the time to prepare and to do all this stuff. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for having me here.
Once again, this was Chepyl Holsworth, and I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. If you guys did, please be sure to follow me on Twitter at @lights_show, and hope you guys have a good rest of your day.